Welcome my YouTube channel, Stoic Powerful Habits. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen. Asterisk. How they really react when they realize you're no longer interested in stoic powerful habits. There's a shift that happens when your energy withdraws. At first, it's subtle. A change in your tone. Less responsiveness. No longer chasing. No longer caring. And that's when they begin to really notice. Not because you said something, but because you said nothing. When you're no longer available emotionally, mentally, or physically, you stop feeding their ego. They feel that vacuum like a cold wind hitting their chest. Because your absence isn't just quiet, it's confronting. One. Your detachment is a message. Detachment speaks louder than confrontation. You didn't block them. You didn't call him out. He just moved different. And it rattles them. Why? Because it's the energy shift they can't control. Suddenly, they realize you were never weak. You were just choosing to care. And now, you've chosen to stop. Two. They panic internally. They may not show it on the surface, but their inner world, it starts to spiral. Because when someone loses access to you, they lose access to power. And some people were feeding on your presence without nourishing you in return. So when that supply stops, they scramble. Did I do something wrong? Why are they different now? Have they moved on? These thoughts echo inside them. And the panic sets in, especially for those who thought you'd always be available. 3. Silence is mere you. Stop explaining yourself. You stop reacting. And suddenly, they're left with their own behavior. No justifications. No arguments. Just your absence. And that silence becomes the mirror they've avoided looking into. For some, it's too much. They lash out. They gaslight. They try to paint you as cold or selfish. But that's not your burden to carry. For. They try subtle tactics. Once they feel your energy pull away, many will try to reel you back in, but not always directly. It might be a random story meant to trigger nostalgia, a vague post to catch your eye, or even a fake crisis to test if you still care. These aren't gestures of love. They're tests of control. Because they're not ready to accept that they no longer move you. 5. Their ego gets bruised when someone's used to being desired. Your indifference feels like an insult. It dents their pride. And instead of reflecting, they react. Some will ghost you harder. Some will pretend they never cared. Some will try to warm up your silence with attention-seeking behavior. It's not maturity. It's a bruised ego trying to cover up its wound. 6. They try to imitate Stoicism and fail. Some will try to match your indifference, pretend they're unbothered. But real Stoicism comes from internal stillness, not acting. You don't have to play games. You just live. You just exist with presence. Their imitation is reactionary. Yours is intentional. That's the difference between self-control and ego-play. 7. You become more attractive without trying the irony. The moment you stop chasing, start noticing your glow. Because the person who doesn't beg for attention becomes magnetic. And the more focused you are on your growth, peace, and power, the more your value amplifies. Not because you wanted to prove anything, but because you started walking like a man who needs nothing. And that's rare. 8. True power is self-containment. You no longer rely on others to feel significant. You become unstoppable. You're no longer seeking closure. You're no longer needing an apology. You've outgrown the game entirely. This is the essence of stoic, powerful habits. To observe, to accept, to master emotion, and to choose where your energy flows. Your disinterest isn't coldness. It's discipline. It's the maturity of a man who no longer pours into cups that leak. You now protect your peace like a warrior guards a fortress. And they feel it, even if they'll never admit it. Because you no longer react. You lead asterisk to withdraw your attention is not to lose love it. It's to reclaim power. Power has always rested in your ability to choose where your awareness dwells. When you no longer look at them with the eyes of need or longing, something curious begins to happen. A shift, invisible to the world, yet louder than any spoken word. For attention is the currency of consciousness, and when you withhold it, you do not merely go silent. You declare that your world no longer orbits around another, but returns to its rightful center. You. This withdrawal is not aggression nor punishment. It is revelation. You have simply ceased to give life to what no longer feeds your spirit. And in this ceasing, you remove the mirror in which they once saw their worth reflected back to them. Suddenly, they are confronted not with your voice, but with its absence. And it is this absence that screams. People do not react to your words, for words are often masks. They respond to your state. Your internal world, though unseen, is always radiating. It goes before you and speaks louder than your lips ever could. So when you shift within, when your heart no longer leans forward, when your thoughts no longer chased, they feel it. Not always consciously, but deeply. They sense that the current has changed direction. The tide has turned inward, and it disturbs a familiar balance they once relied upon. You may find them looking again, not out of affection, but confusion, wondering what happened to that sweet attention that once arrived so freely. What happened to the emotion that could pull on like a thread? What happened to the energy that once bent toward them with no resistance? They are not seeking you. They are seeking the feeling your attention gave them. It is not you they miss, but the experience of being seen. Your detachment then becomes your loudest statement. You do not have to tell them you've changed. Do not have to explain that you shifted. The soul broadcasts what the tongue cannot. When your desire dissolves, when your internal flame no longer burns for their validation, it reflects in everything, in your walk, your tone, your time, your absence. There is no need for explanation when the vibration is already spoken. This is the essence of true power. Not dominance over others, but dominion over the self. The ability to master your attention is the ability to master your life. You no longer cast pearls before the unseeing. You no longer pour from a cup that returns nothing. And you do so not with resentment, but with quiet certainty that your energy is sacred and your presence a gift, not a guarantee. To the one who is used to your emotional availability, this withdrawal is chaos. They panicked, not always visibly, but inwardly. For those who relied on your attention to feel significant, your indifference becomes an identity crisis. They began to wonder what changed, why the wind no longer blows in their direction, why the warmth they took for granted now feels like cold air. The foundation of their ego trembles, for it was built not on mutual care, but on your consistent giving. Control is often mistaken for connection. When they felt they could evoke emotion in you, they mistook it for love. They equated your response with their importance. And so, when you no longer respond, when your emotions no longer dance to their rhythm, it threatens the illusion. They do not fear losing youth. They fear losing the control your affection gave them. This panic may look like silence, or anger, or mock detachment. It may disguise itself in prideful withdrawal, or sudden attention-seeking. But all of it is a performance around the simple truth. They have lost the ability to move you. And that loss is intolerable to the ego. Because in their mind, if they can no longer make you react, then they no longer matter. And they do not know how to matter without being able to pull on your strings. But this is where the deeper wisdom reveals itself. Your emotional detachment is not their punishment. It is your liberation. You are not taking anything from them. You are simply returning your awareness back to the only place it ever belonged, within. And the moment you do, you reclaim the creative power that was scattered across countless moments of trying to be enough, trying to be seen, trying to be needed. You begin to remember that your emotional world is yours to govern, and no one can cause you to feel unless you give them the power to do so. And now, You no longer do. Not because you're hardened, but because you are healed. Healed enough to know that true connection arises not from reaction, but from reflection. Not from manipulation, but from resonance. In their panic, you remain still. Not to provoke, but because your stillness is no longer reactive. Okay, it is rooted. You are no longer the river they can step into at will. You are now the mountain immoved, unshaken, uninterested in being anything other than what you are. And in that stillness, you grow stronger. In that silence, your authority returns. You realize now that love does not chase. Peace does not beg. Worth does not plead to be chosen. What is rooted in truth will never demand your suffering to prove itself. You no longer lean forward, you allow life to lean toward you. For you have become the center of your own reality again. You no longer search for approval. You simply live from the knowing that your value was never determined by who chooses you, but by who you choose to be. And so the panic they feel is not your concern. It is their soul meeting the vacuum left by your departure. It is the sound of an old power dynamic collapsing. It is the reverberation of a bond that was never mutual, now meeting the silence of imbalance. Let them panic. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the space where your energy once was. Or in that space, they will either awaken or disappear. Either way, you remain free. And in this freedom, something greater begins to unfold. You no longer waste time reading signs from others. You read your own inner signals. You watch your own thoughts, cultivate your own peace, and build your world from the inside out. This is where your true life begins, not in being understood by them, but in understanding yourself. Now you see the beauty in the withdrawal, not as an act of coldness, but of clarity. You did not lose anything when you stopped engaging. You remembered your worth. You remembered that love is not about proving, but about presence. You remembered that the one who governs their awareness governs their world, and now you govern yours. Asterisk silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is the womb of revelation. It does not argue. It does not explain. It simply is. And in its presence, all illusions fall away. When one no longer responds, no longer reacts, no longer entertains the dance of emotional entanglement, what remains is truth in its rawest form. The mind may resist it, the heart may tremble before it, but the soul recognizes silence as sacred. It strips away every performance, every pretense, and exposes the reality that words often conceal. Those who once basked in your attention now find themselves gazing into a mirror they never intended to face. Wow, without your energy feeding their narrative, they are left with the stillness of their own reflection. No more distractions, no more validations. Just the quiet echo of their own thoughts and intentions reverberating within them. And for many, this is terrifying. For without your emotional reactions, they cannot avoid themselves. They cannot mask their motives behind your responses. Your silence removes their shield and forces them to meet what they truly are. There is a unique power in withdrawing your focus, not in bitterness, but in still authority. You no longer participate in the drama, not because you are passive, but because you are elevated beyond it. You observe, and in your observation, you reclaim your power. You cease to identify with the role they once cast you in. And without your performance, their story begins to unravel. They can no longer play the same games. The rules have changed, and they have not yet realized they are no longer the player. They are now the watchdog. In this sacred silence, their intentions begin to surface. Not because you dig or question or accuse, but because you no longer cloud their actions with interpretation. What they do now reveals what was always there. Some retreat into shadows, not out of pain, but because their purpose was never rooted in presence. They came to be seen, to be adored, to be fed. And when the source of attention dries up, so too does their investment. Others, confused by your detachment, attempt to test the waters. They stir the air with vague gestures, hints of emotion, crumbs of conversation, hoping to provoke the same old response. These attempts are not affection. They are not reconnection. They are reaction. They are rooted not in love, but in fear. The fear of no longer having access to the emotion they once controlled. They miss the mirror, not the man. For when you cease to reflect back their significance, they begin to question their own. And this void creates discomfort, not devotion. Do not mistake their return for repentance. Many return, not because they value you, but because they value what you once gave them. Observe carefully how they try to re-enter your space. It may not be loud. It may not be bold. It may come as a memory-laced message, a sudden compliment, a glimpse into a shared past. These are not bridges, they are bait. Hooks cast into the waters of your peace to see if you will bite again. But you have learned now. You no longer swim in shallow ponds. You no longer chase what cannot stand in stillness. You remain anchored and let the waves pass by. There is no need to respond. There is no need to explain your silence or your withdrawal. Explanation is often a plea to be understood by those who never cared to listen in the first place. What they seek is not clarity, but control. If they can provoke emotion in you, they feel alive again. They feel relevant. Your attention is their oxygen. But you have taken the breath back into your own lungs. And now they gasp in the space you once filled. Let them wonder. Let them search the silence for meaning. That space is now your sanctuary. It is the evidence of your evolution. You no longer need to play along. You no longer need to correct their assumptions. You have transcended the need to be right in the eyes of someone who never saw you clearly. Your stillness speaks in a language only the soul understands. And those who are not aligned with truth cannot decipher it. They will call it cold. We'll call it ego. But they do not see the fire that birthed it. The fire of transformation, of remembrance, of awakening, as they attempt to re-engage you. Do not be swayed by the familiar. Memory is not the same as meaning. Just because it once made you feel does not mean it deserves your present. You are not here to reanimate old versions of yourself just to make others comfortable. You are here to embody the truth of who you have become. And that truth does not chase. That truth does not justify. That truth does not need external echoes to know its own sound. The illusion begins to crack when you do not respond as expected. When you no longer provide the emotional highs and lows that once sustained the pattern. New version of you, because it cannot be manipulated, cannot be lured. It is not moved by nostalgia or guilt. It is rooted in self-awareness, and that is something they cannot imitate. Many try. They mirror your stillness, attempt to appear. Unbothered, but it is a mask. Stoicism, born of insecurity, is fragile. It cracks under the weight of silence, but yours does not. Yours was forged in solitude, not fear. When you no longer seek to convince or convert, you embody your highest authority. You no longer need agreement to feel certain. You no longer require their presence to feel whole. You become your own source. And from this place, all re-engagement attempts appear as they truly are. Distractions from your peace. Not doors to deeper connection, but loops that lead back to noise. They do not know what to do when their tactics fail. When their tests are met with calm, not chaos. When their gestures are observed, but not indulged. This, more than anything, confronts them. Because they have not yet realized that you have changed the game. And you have changed, not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. You no longer bend for comfort. You stand for clarity. There is no need to teach them a lesson. Life will do that. And your absence is the first chapter. The way you no longer orbit them is the teaching. The way you protect your energy without apology is the wisdom. You have become the silent invitation to rise and a loud reminder of. What happens when someone fails to value presence? Let them come. Let them go. Let them test and try. You no longer play. You are not on the board anymore. You are not a piece, not a pawn, not even the opponent. You have stepped out of the game entirely. And in doing so, you have returned to the only thing that was ever real. Dash yourself dot asterisk. The moment your interest dissolves, something within them trembles. It is not the loss of your companionship that startles them, but the quiet severance of attention they had come to depend upon. The ego, once fed by your gaze, your replies, your availability, now starves in your silence. And in that space where your energy once stood, they encounter a reflection of themselves that no longer shines. They feel unseen, not because you turned your back, but because you turned your awareness inward. For the one who relied on your validation to maintain their image of importance, your detachment wounds deeper than any words ever could. Their sense of self was tangled in your reactions, your emotional availability. When you were drawn on in bitterness, but with peace, they are left exposed. Their significance, which once echoed in your attention, now finds no mirror. So, they reached not out of love, but out of egoic panic. Not to reconnect, but to reclaim control over the source that once gave them form. This is not cruelty. It is clarity. You are no longer a participant in the illusion they crafted a reflection that suited their comfort, but denied your truth. You once played the role of the admirer, the responder, the one who made them feel seen. And now, having awakened to your own value, you no longer offer that stage. In doing so, you are not attacking them. You are removing the false relationship that was built on imbalance. Their wounded pride may not express itself directly. It may take the form of indifference, sarcasm, or forced laughter. But beneath that mask lies an uneasiness they cannot name. The stillness you embody shows them they were never in control. Not of you, and certainly not of themselves. They mistook your kindness for need, your attention for dependence. Truth is, you had always chosen them freely, fully, and now you choose yourself. Okay? And so they try to mask their unease. They present a mirror image of your stillness, hoping to reclaim dignity in the face of your evolution. They mimic your calm, your distance, your detachment. But imitation born of reaction carries no weight. It lacks the depth of true inner transformation. Their Stoicism is performance it seeks to conceal, not to express. They attempt to look unaffected, but every move reveals the truth. They are deeply unsettled by your shift. One cannot copy stillness without embodying the stillness that birthed it. One cannot mimic wholeness without first dissolving the ego that hungers for approval. So when they act unbothered, it is not a reflection of peace, but of pride. A tease? A silent contest, not a surrender to inner power. They posture in an attempt to win back the narrative. But the one who has transcended the game does not engage in the scoreboard. True detachment cannot be faked, for it does not arise from defense, flows from fulfillment. You are no longer reactive, not because you are numb, but because you are rooted. Your stillness is not a tactic. It is a return to your center, a remembrance of where your power truly resides. And so their imitation, however skillful, always falls short. It cannot match the authenticity of a soul that no longer plays for validation. This is why they grow uneasy, because they cannot touch you in the way they once did. The buttons they pressed now lie dormant. The strings they pulled now hang loose. You are no longer an instrument to be played by external hands. You have tuned yourself to a higher frequency, and they do not know the notes. And in this new vibration, their attempts to mirror you only reveal their dissonance. There may be moments when they return with sweetness, or softness, or the appearance of vulnerability. But understand the root of the gesture. Many who feel Rejected will attempt to reclaim power through the appearance of love. But love that comes only after withdrawal is not love. It is reaction. It is the ego's attempt to reestablish control by changing costumes. What once came as pride now comes as apology, but the source is the same. Seeks access, not alignment. To be unaffected is not to be uncaring. It is to care from a place that does not require reciprocation to maintain peace. You do not need to deny your humanity. You only need to remain in the knowing that your energy is yours to give, not theirs to demand. And so, when you remain still, in the face of their performance, you are not rejecting them. You are honoring the truth. There's great temptation to explain, to reveal, to show them the depth of what you now see. Understand that awakening is not taught, it's caught. It happens not through words, but through presence. The presence of someone who has reclaimed their focus, their energy, their sovereignty. The presence of one who is no longer moved by the tides of emotion, but by the quiet current of inner guidance. If they are to rise, it will not be through your instruction. It will be through your example. And that example is not one of arrogance or superiority, but of quiet knowing. You are no longer willing to be the reflection of another's ego. You are now the expression of your own essence. And that essence does not need to be explained, only embodied. Let them perform. Let them mirror. Let them imitate. It is not your role to correct their misunderstanding of your peace. It is enough to remain in it. For the soul recognizes what the ego cannot. And in time, if they are willing, the soul will lead them home. But you will not wait. You will not pause your growth for someone else to catch up. You are not a fixed star in their sky. You are a moving light, following the truth of your own path. There will be echoes, memories, tugs from the past, but none of them compared to the freedom of now. The freedom of no longer being manipulated by what once stirred you. The freedom of standing in your own vibration, not as a reaction to them, but as a declaration of who you have become. And in this state, you attract not the imitator, but the equal. Not the performer, but the present. Do not mistake silence for absence. Do not confuse stillness with indifference. You have not disappeared. You have appeared to yourself. And in that appearing, you reveal to others what they truly are. Some will resist it. Some will resent it. Some will pretend not to notice. But those with eyes to see will feel it. And they will either rise into their own stillness or fall away from yours. You are not responsible for their panic. You are not here to manage their ego's reaction to your peace. You are here to live. As the embodiment of the truth, you have remembered that your power was never in your words, nor in your attention, but in your awareness. And now that you hold it sacred, the world must adjust. Not because you demanded it, but because you became it. Asterisk, when desire fades, when the need to prove or pursue dissolves, something profound begins to take place within. No longer are you stretching outward to be seen, heard, or acknowledged. You rest in yourself. You begin to embody a presence that is no longer reactive, but radiant. And it is in this still, effortless state of being that you become more visible than ever before. Not because you are performing, not because you are trying, but because you are no longer striving. The paradox is that the moment you stop seeking is the moment you are sought. The energy that once scattered outward returns to its origin. You are no longer a beggar of attention, but the beholder of it. People do not always recognize why they are drawn to you. They cannot articulate the magnetism, but they feel it. For presence needs no introduction. Its impact is immediate, and its silence louder than any pursuit. They begin to watch, not with the same eyes they once held, but with new confusion. Why does your absence feel heavier than their presence? Why does your disinterest stir more curiosity than all your former affections? It is not what you say or do now that draws them, But what you do not say, what you no longer offer, what you have withdrawn from the external world and reclaimed within. The power of unavailability is not in denial, but in distinction. You are not absent from life. You are absent from noise. You are not withholding to manipulate. You are simply full, so full that you no longer give your essence to those who cannot hold it. Then your value multiplies. For what is rare is desired, and what is whole is revered. They once had access to your heart without understanding its depth. They once consumed your energy without reverence. And now that you are no longer extending yourself without discernment, they feel the loss not of a person, but of a presence. Your silence becomes sacred. Your distance becomes desirable. They remember what they dismissed. They long for what they once overlooked. Because now they must face the truth they never truly saw you. They only saw the reflection of themselves in your gaze. And now the gaze has turned inward. Now your attention has been sanctified. And so you become the mystery. Not because you are hiding, but because you are no longer projecting. Not because you are unclear, but because you are no longer trying to be understood. In the absence of explanation, your energy speaks its own language. It cannot be decoded by the mind. It must be felt by the soul. This is not strategy. This is not a plan to be chased. It is the natural result of inner transformation. When you no longer need anything from them, not response, not acknowledgement, you return to your natural state, the observer. And in that observation, you rise. You ascend from the game of emotional negotiation into the clarity of self-awareness. You are no longer playing roles. You are no longer bending into shapes. You are simply being. And yet, this being is powerful. It is not passive. It is potent. Because the one who does not chase cannot be caught. The one who does not seek cannot be manipulated. The one who stands in stillness becomes the lighthouse and moved, unshaken, a silent signal in the dark. Those who once overlooked the light now find themselves drawn to it, not because of what it offers, but because of what it is. From this awareness, a new understanding emerges. The true power is not in conquest, but in containment. It is not in convincing others to stay, but in choosing not to be moved by their departure. It is not in gaining attention, but in mastering the self. For all that you once looked for outside yourself, respect, admiration, presence was waiting within, hidden not from you, but by you, covered beneath the layers of desire, performance, and attachment. As those layers fall away, your essence emerges calm, clear, undeniable. And in this emergence, others feel the change. Some recoil. Some draw closer, but all are affected. Because when one returns to their own center, the balance of every relationship shifts. Those who were attached to your need now find no grip. Those who fed off your pursuit now find no feast. And those who sought to define you must now confront the truth that you have defined yourself. There is no effort required. The work has already been done internally. What remains is embodiment. You no longer declare your worth, okay? You demonstrate it through how you move, how you speak, and when you choose silence, okay? You no longer demand respect, okay? You command it through absence, where once there was overextension. You no longer fear being forgotten. You recognize that what is truly aligned will never need to be chased. Containment is the final act of mastery. To feel the impulse and not respond. To feel the urge and remain still. Not as suppression, but as sovereignty. You are not denying your emotion. You are mastering its direction. You are no longer the echo of the world's demands. You are the source of your own experience. And from this place, your energy becomes sacred. Not all will. Understand it? Many will misinterpret your stillness as distance, your calm as disinterest, your silence as rejection. Let them. You are not here to be decoded by minds that have not yet learned to listen. Atia, you are not here to explain the soil to seeds that have not yet sprouted. You are here to remain in the truth you have claimed, and those who are ready will feel it. You need not correct the misunderstanding. It is not your role to educate those who read your detachment as disdain. If they are meant to walk beside you, they will rise into understanding. If not, they will fall away. In either case, you remain. You do not reach to retrieve. You do not bend to prove. You do not move for anything less than alignment. In this containment lies your creation. You do not bend to prove. You do not move for anything less than alignment. In this containment lies your creation. For the same energy that once scattered toward the undeserving is now available for vision, for purpose, for manifestation. You are no longer wasting your awareness. You are directing it. But you are becoming deliberate. And in your deliberateness, you shape your world. Not through force, but through flow. Not through effort, but through embodiment. To no longer be reactive is to step outside the script of the world. It is to realize you were never meant to play. The part they gave you, you were always the author. And now, pen in hand, awareness turned inward. You write, not to impress, but to express. You speak not to gain, but to give. You exist not to please, but to create. And from this creation, your life unfolds not as a response to others, but as a reflection of yourself. You are the center now, not in ego, but in essence. You do not orbit. You are orbited. You do not pursue. You are pursued. And those who are meant to be with you will know, not because you chase them, but because you hold still long enough for them to recognize you. Let them feel your absence. Let them wonder why the energy has shifted. Let them remember what it meant to be in your presence, but do not return to remind them. The man who has remembered himself does not return to who he was. He builds from where he now stands. In that building, he becomes